Okay, so we're going to go with the no. So the official word is we're going to hold on to that pick and maybe see what happens a little bit later on in the draft as the draft roars on. So we will not make this deal. And we will continue to roar on for at least a couple of picks. I would guess Odunze goes here, if I'm not mistaken, and the Bills can kind of sit pat for a little while. And so he went actually ninth there. So the Bills probably could have gotten up to this stage for a little bit even cheaper at that stage at 9 if they wanted to. But we have said that we are going to pass on that. So we're going to see. We can pause it again in a few more choices.
I was going to say pause it at like that 15 range, because I think that's a spot where we could potentially trade up to get Brian Thomas. That's my next guy.
There's your 15 spot. So you got Latham off the board. You got Quinion Mitchell, a guy I really like. So really a couple of names the Bills are be happy to see come off the board. A couple tackle runs here for the Bills. So, here's the Colts pick at 15. Now, what would it come up to cost to get that selection? Maybe they now save the Bills. Could probably just dish. Let's see here. It's really just the one in the second next year gets this deal done, Kevin. What are your thoughts at this stage?
I'm doing that. Like, if you take that, well, that was their original second, right? That's not the one from
the original. That's the Bills second, not the Vikings second. That's correct. You could do either. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You go either way.
Well, theoretically, you'd want to give them your own second because you think that you're going to have a better record than the Vikings. So if you want to trade up right now, because Seattle, Jacksonville, and Cincinnati could potentially take Brian Thomas. So if the Colts are willing to make this trade, I say do it. Now, if the Bills didn't have a second-round pick next year, it'd be different.
Right.
But they got that extra one from Diggs, and if you're going to get rid of an alpha dog in Diggs, you better replace him with an alpha dog. So I say this is a time where we be aggressive, and we make this trade if they accept it.
Okay. So I think it's fair to say, so you like Brian Thomas. I believe the answers to this is yes before we make this offer. You like Brian Thomas enough over. I know you're a Leggett guy. I know you like a couple other players. You like him more, a second-round pick next year more than the next tier.
Well, that's the thing. If we don't get Brian Thomas, I would say Xavier Leggett at 28. Or in my case earlier, I traded back to get Leggett. But again, I just think that you're playing it very risky to have that laid back approach. So just because I do like Brian Thomas a tick better than Xavier Leggett, and I think there might be a little bit more there with him. That's nothing against Leggett. I think Brian Thomas just has a little bit more that he can provide right away. And he's a little bit more polished. I know they're both relatively raw.
All right.
Yeah, I just say I think this has to be the move.
All right, let's do it. So I will concur. I think at this range, I wouldn't go much more. Now, if the pick here or there, maybe I would toss in. But this is basically the maximum I'm really willing to do in next year's second to make this happen. It's very similar to the Texans trade, actually. The pick that got the Bills, this Minnesota pick, the fact that they traded out of their pick in the 20s for a second next year and a second in the following year. So it's kind of similar in that, guys, where you're kind of trading up 13 slots for a next year second. I think that that's fair to do. But here we go. We're gonna approve this. So for me to put this on record before we make this trade, I still may hold. I like some of the other players just as much as I personally like Brian Thomas Jr. There's a few receivers that I like at that spot later on in the draft. But we will do this for principles of getting up, showing the aggressiveness, and the Bills generally has seemed to be very interested in Brian Thomas Jr. That is also in the consideration here. But Kevin, myself, I may hold on this trade to hold, maybe come up with an usual fourth-round pick if they need to a little bit to hop a couple teams. But I don't know how much higher he is than the rest of the tiers. And I think there's been some draft analysts who have said that as much, where are we really sure he's that much better than Worthy, Leggett, than McConkey? I don't know. There's definitely not. There's not enough on the table to prove to me that he's in a new tier on his own and the kind of in this individual range. But we're going to swing the deal here to make this happen, and then we'll see what happens. So we offered it to it. They didn't accept that. So just a second. So they're wanting more picks, Kevin. Does that change your mind?
I was going to say that changes my mind because to your point and to my point earlier, this is a deep class. So if the Bills cannot get Brian Thomas, I don't think it's panic mode because you can get someone like Xavier Leggett. So I would say no. And then maybe we could wait until picks 20, 21, 22. maybe one of those teams like Pittsburgh.
So
I
let's
don't wanna trade
pass.
with
I
Miami, but
officially am not going to make the deal. I thought that was already a little bit more than I was willing to do. So I'm going to pass on this, and we're going to resume the draft because they declined our offer that I personally thought was more than fair. If I'm going to give more than that, I probably would have made an offer to go get Odunze at 9. But apparently the Bears took him anyways. So how interested are they going to be to deal the player that they took? That is always going to be my argument for trying to come up to a spot where someone might want the player. So let's get this rock.
Wasn't it Washington that just offered Ryan Poles like all their first round picks, and he said no, I want to stay at number 1 because I want Caleb Williams?
I think so. Yes,
I think I saw that today.
So it goes. So the Jags are now on the clock. We've seen a couple of players go, which would drastically reduce the cost to come up. So let's just take a quick gander at what that may cost. Now you're in range of, can you hold that second round pick, maybe deal some picks into this year as a possibility? You definitely could get the second pick that is muchly in favor of the Jaguars to get that trade done. So that's why I'm not overly, feeling, like if they give what are you thinking now at this stage? Would you want to come up here or just continue to roll the draft?
Well, I was going to say pause it at 20 and then maybe you trade with Pittsburgh or Philly, but Jacksonville could very well take a receiver. Cincinnati, I mean, as much as we're thinking they might go O-line or D-line, I could see them trying to take T. Higgins' replacement here in Brian Thomas.
Okay, so you want to
this
roll
might
it.
Be the spot to trade. Like I would offer that same exact package, one of those second round picks, and then obviously pick 28 to try to jump Jacksonville here, because Jacksonville is always a thorn in the Bills' side.
Let's try something real quick. And they took it. So I actually got away with a late 4th round pick and the 3rd rounder next year. So we actually are holding on to both 2nd round picks next year.
Oh, would you get them? Next year's
3rd and 4th this year.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
So the Bills actually will still keep those high assets. I'm feeling much better about this cost point for Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel, a world's better to do it that way and actually save my couple of my twos next year. So here we go. We're going to take Brian Thomas Jr. and we're going to roll the draft. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
So let it rock. Latu went. Nate Wiggins, a good looking player. Mims, Chop Robinson goes. Let's see who goes the initial pick. Darius Robinson goes with the Bills' initial pick. Adonai Mitchell going there. So no other receivers off the board till Worthy at 33. So then we see McConkey go.
So the Bills don't pick again till 60. Yep. What are we thinking here? Double dipping at receiver or trying the safety?
I mean, they could go either route, right? So it looks like actually I kept my 4th. I traded a 5th rounder this year. So I traded a 5 this year and the 3 next year. So I thought the Bills got a very good deal there.
Yeah, and the Bills have 3 5th round picks. So who cares about that 3rd, 5th rounder if you can use that to go get Brian Thomas?
Correct. So there goes Pearsall. So the Bills could have, in theory, been interested in this range here with Fisk, Wilson, and Pearsall if they want to come up again. I don't know that that's in the cards for multiple come-ups. And Keon Coleman goes 1 slot before the Bills at this choice. So they still have Jalen Polk, Chris Jenkins. There's your Jay. I know you like Jaden Hicks a lot. Christian Haynes is a plug-and-play starting guard, one of the best in the market at the current moment. What are you thinking the Bills should do here? Should they? I mean, they really like Walker a lot. So where are you? What are you feeling like doing at this stage?
Did Leggett get picked already?
I would believe so, but I didn't. There he goes to Carolina.
So he went at 39.
Double dip. Carolina double dip 33-39 for Worthy and Leggett.
That's pretty solid for them.
Yeah.
And then Tyler Nubin, I saw him in the early 40s. And did Cameron Kitchens get picked too?
He did not. So we can put up safety up here on the board too. So Kitchens is actually pretty low on a lot of people's boards at the moment. He's in the 80s. So what are we feeling? I know a lot of people like Baker. Polk is a nice looking player. I like him a whole lot. Obviously Hicks is here. The Bills like Walker, Baker. Would have been interesting if Coleman was on the board. He went one draft choice ahead of the Bills. We can continue to open up. Let's open up interior O-line. Take a look at that. We'll toss on running back just for fun. Defensive interior. So here's, Chris Jenkins is a plug and play guy that they can utilize, as well as Christian Haynes is a plug-and-play guard. So how are you feeling? Someone says trade back. Okay, maybe they would. Maybe the Bills would try to look at trading back after making that trade-up scenario.
I was just about to suggest that because I'm still trying to scheme a way to get that third round pick back.
How far back are you wanting to come back? Go back, excuse me.
I would say no more than 10.
Okay, so pick 70. 70 and 107. They have 69 and 105. 67.
So here's what I'm
There's
thinking.
your Washington. So there's Washington. So what about your 100? So then the Bills would have to probably sweeten the pot, something like that.
So what I'm thinking is if you trade back 5 to 10 spots, you try to get that fifth rounder back, or maybe just another day 3 pick in general, so that you can move back up again and get that third rounder back.
Well, what about your Washington team that you like? Why not move down 7 spots, take that 100 pick that you like, and throw in a little late round pick to make it even? What about something like that? So you don't have to come back up.
Oh, so you're saying we get more bang for our buck, just do it all right now?
Yeah, with Washington.
I like that. Okay, wait, let me see what we got here. So you're saying we would go back from 60 to 67.
Yes.
And then we
Take
would
pick
also
100.
get pick 100.
But we're giving up one of our later sixth, our last sixth.
Yeah, I mean, if that gets accepted,
okay,
I'm all for it.
It did. So we're good to
Wow.
go. So now we don't have to come back up. We can kind of play it straight up from here. And there we go. Great trade by the Bills. Move back 7 and acquire that pick. I think the Bills would be pretty happy with that. So let's roll it to the new Bills pick. So now we don't have to make another trade the rest of the draft. There goes Chris Jenkins, someone the Bills in a couple of bangers, though. The 3 guys I was the most interested in go runner with Polk, Jenkins, and Haynes. Those were 3 guys that I would have liked on the Bills. They go runner there as it roars on. So the Bills are there. You still have Jaden Hicks available. Where are you looking now? You do have Vontez Walker, a guy that they definitely like. I know a lot of people like Sweat. You can go Javon Baker here. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that the next 2 picks need to be safety and another wide receiver.
Okay.
I could be influenced to go elsewhere. Now, what picks do the Bills currently have right now after all these trades?
Remaining picks are right here: 67, 100, 128, 133, 160, 163, and then I think a 6th and a 7th.
Okay, so I'm thinking wide receiver, safety, potentially defensive tackle. So what do you think about those positions and like the value of each round? Because like I think you would get great bang for your buck if you took Jaden Hicks here. Is Kitchen still available?
He is.
He's slipping. I mean, I think that would be a great pick to move back to 67 and still be able to get Kitchens.
A lot of people want Baker here at this stage because, you know, it's going to thin out at the receiver's position. And then you look safety with the 100 pick, which you did in yours. I think would be the way I was leaning to double dip at the. So someone would have taken. So Pat would have taken Polk. He went 2 picks ago, but that would have been probably a way they were thinking if they didn't make that trade back. Christian Haynes was a starting right guard at UConn. You'd have to put him at left guard. Yep.
Could you just put the safeties on? Because I want to see the list that we have here. Because you're right. We probably could find one at 100. See, I use Pro Football Network, so Hicks fell to me down at that 100 spot, but he's ranked higher on PFF.
Yeah, so they like Hicks, but they don't like Kinchins as much. I personally love Kalen Bullock. I like Taylor Demerson's really good too. So there's a couple of guys. Cole Bishop is a guy I believe the Bills would be interested in. So there's definitely some names, lots of names here from 87 all the way to 120. I think is a really good range, and the Bills luckily have a pick there now.
Yes. So okay, now I am back on the wide receiver train. I say we get one of those wide receivers because that starts to thin out, and then we get a safety.
Okay. I agree with you. So also, you know, guys, I like Malik Washington's probably grossly underranked, really great player, especially if you already got the big receiver. You know, Malachi Corley's a guy I really like. Jabari Thrash has been flying up board. The Bills clearly like Tez Walker. But you know, are we thinking Baker here?
Now, is he a second round grade or is he more of a third or fourth round? Because I've seen that fluctuate. I mean, I know Chris Trapasso was really high on him, but I've seen others that say he's nothing more than a 4th rounder.
So if I pull up my consensus board, which is pulling in all the best resources in the draft world. So let's take a look at where he's generally ranked. Chris Trapasso does like him the most. He's got him as his 33rd ranked prospect. Some ESPN has him as a 70th ranked prospect, about where we're picking here. NBC 77th. There are a couple of people that PFF and PFN have him as 116 and 120 respectively. Is there another guy you were thinking? Devontae Walker? Is he where you're leaning? Or I guess tell me about who would you take here?
Yeah, I guess it would have to be Baker if we're going to go wide receiver. It's just, what do we value more according to our board, a safety or a wide receiver? And I think I would have to favor wide receiver because I do like that value finding a third round safety. So if Baker's the guy here, I say that's fine, because if you have Brian Thomas slotting in as wide receiver 1, that's the thing though, is Javon Baker or Curtis Samuel wide receiver 2?
We'll see how it looks in camp, honestly. Like, we wouldn't know at this stage, I don't think.
Okay, so let's just say that he starts as wide receiver 4, because the Bills don't necessarily favor rookies. So would we be okay with this receiving core? Brian Thomas is 1, Curtis Samuel 2, Khalil Shakir 3, Javon Baker 4, and then probably Justin Shorter 5. And then am I forgetting one?
Mac Hollins.
Okay, yeah, my bad. Mac Hollins 5, Justin Shorter 6.
Correct.
Maybe that would be irreversible. I think that's pretty solid.
Okay. So we're going to go Javon Baker here. We're going to see what he can do. Don't forget, we're on the 3rd now. He traded back, so this is a 3rd round pick. We aren't taking him in the 2nd. So I think that any of these guys would be fair. It would have been nice to see. I do believe the Bills may have been interested in either Jenkins or Polk, had either of them fallen there for them. We can just look at running back. The Bills, wouldn't be shocked to see them take Trey Benson. But we'll see what happens later on in the draft here at this position. But for now, we're going to keep the train rolling, and we're going to go with our guy, Javon Baker. There's a lot of good film on him, and we're going to select Javon Baker here. And let's keep this train rolling until the end of the 3rd now.
I think that's really solid.
Can you really complain overall about what they were able to do? I would not complain about coming out with Brian Thomas Jr. and Javon Baker. That's for sure.
And the way we maneuvered around, we traded up and then traded back, and now we can probably go get a safety for really good value.
Right.
All right, so what do we have for safety?
So Kitchens went 88. So you still have Kalen Bullock, a guy I would personally select here. Also, Taylor Demerson's another great looking safety. I do believe the Bills would go either way with that pick 100 on this spot.
I'm thinking Cole Bishop could be a sleeper too. I don't know if that's a little bit too high for him, but I think he could be a McDermott type of guy.
Yeah, I think it's possible he would be. Would they take him over Kalen Bullock? I probably wouldn't think so, but he absolutely could be at the next selection for sure.
Can you pull up his maybe analytics or stats? I just want to read into these players a little bit more before we make our selections.
Sure. So definitely we saw, I'm at Cole Bishop now. We saw a really good looking play last year's coverage grade. He kind of struggled at times, had a big missed tackle rate, pretty solid and run, but overall had some struggles this season, at least. Definitely played better last season. Plays a little bit more in the slot than you'd like to see the Bills use, but they could use him, drop him down in there in the box, and he plays a little more deep safety, so a little more free for the Bills.
Oh, I thought he was more of a strong safety, because I thought he has that big frame and they like to line him up as a in that box role. Wait, so is he a strong safety or free safety? Or
He plays more free last season per his alignment. So if you see here, he's 247 at free, 180 in the box. He's played both last year. He was better in the box. He's a versatile safety. He can play either.
And what's his height, weight?
6'2", 207.
That is pretty good. Now, let's see Bullock.
6'3", 190.
Would you go with Bullock here?
I personally would. If Bullock was on the board, I would definitely go with him there. That would be my selection if I could have a selection. I would pick Bullock here. I also like Taylor Demerson a good amount as well.
Yeah, just based on the board, I wouldn't want to potentially reach for Bishop. So it seems like it's either Bullock or Taylor Demerson.
Yeah, that makes sense. The draft is looking like they're preferring Bullock. I'm personally would go Bullock here if he was on the board. I think he's a pretty good selection. PFF says he's better. He's a really good coverage player. I think that could swing his his trigger. He's definitely can play either, which is nice for the Bills. So let's select Kalen Bullock here and kind of see where it goes.
I'm good with that.
Okay, selected, and let's see what happens now in the 4th round as we roll on.